perspective. So for the item and two sections will be the position to make eye contact with me as I speak. Mr. Chairman, my lords, temporal, spiritual, and temporal, they are all gathered here. National Coordinator of SEFO, distinguished delegates. SEFO! SEFO! 2023! I first and foremost wish to associate myself with every single comment made here so far, from the chairman to the coordinator to the prayer of our bishop to the inaugurated speech by Professor Lebo. I share the sentiments, I share the spirit, and I share the passion. My only source of, or the source of the mystery is where the coordinator and the rest of you do find the courage, the confidence, the spirit to sustain the incredible work you are doing. It's only God that can so inspire, strengthen, and lift the burden of your heart and soul to continue on this very historic and glorious path. So give it up. But at the same time, I do not want SEFO to become a mutual admiration club where an echo chamber is formed and every single person in a herd mentality will march on as if we do not have problems even with the concept of the Southeast Presidency 2023. My task, therefore, while applauding this glory moment, is a warning to burst some bubbles. And in so doing, I just crave you to lend me your ears. In 2010, when the late President Udenta died, and the land was apparently consumed by spirited debates over constitutional order and governance, I did a piece called, a very provocative piece, led President Udenta, deconstructing the politics of the Nile. That was the time the whole world, the whole nation talked about the cabal, ambassador asking to resign, brokers, owners, and newspaper association have told him to get out of the way. Jonathan should have said the truth. For you to now say, let that dying president be, was so audacious. I received courses in the morning, thousands of courses from the Bible. I was smiling, I was convinced of the path, rightness of my path. By evening, almost those courses turned into praises. They say, we didn't read you, we just saw the provocative thing you put out. Now we've read you closely. We now have to withdraw the courses and praise you. I don't want premature courses now that will turn into praises later in the day. So listen to me and I quickly go through what I have for you. One, you can visualize as much as you can the scarcity of people here, the delegates, the lawful members, and so on. But this is part of the limit. This is part of the limit of advocacy by a civil society group. It's part of the limits of this kind of advocacy. Southeast 23 can be formed, or is already formed on two parameters, two agencies of their work. The agencies of mass organization, which is what I do. If you don't organize the people, bring them in frontiers of ignorance, empower them with knowledge and understanding, and let the world know that the time has come that this which has to be must become. We accomplish that. The next agency is who the hell is going to become president. I suspect nobody in this world will be the president, except these two who want to be president. But being president is not a APC and PDP. They want to construct and eliminate a force that can produce that president. If not, the president will come from these two hegemonic parties. And they're not here. That means there is a sense of contempt for civil society and the level of mobilization what we are doing. Because at the end of the day, I will end the statement I go with. Even if we do the work we're doing, from now till kingdom come, we mobilize every inch of the southeast and the whole of the country. We galvanize the diaspora. We break down the culture of unbelief and resistance and make every living thing breathe in 2023, in 2023, or 2023. And there is not a presidential candidate from the southeast. Will you not be dead on arrival? That is the second agency. You don't find credible candidates, you're wasting our time. But that will come towards the end of my speech. There are three components: the national position, presidential power, and limits of advocacy. The first two are not directly tailored to the theme of today. Are united, what are the candidates, the bias cast. What is important for us to undertake this journey, for this purpose to be possible. One, there is always a refrain in social media where you find that these parties have been toppled and pseudo intellectuals have taken over. And people do not go to social media in order to do what? They construct understanding. They go into confirm belief. Anything that is not part of that belief is toppled, thrown aside, neutralized, subverted. You must read that which confirms that thing which already you believe in. And that's one of those things is Nigeria is a mere geographic expression. They claim it was Awolowo who said it in 1947. I can give you two histories. One, Count Metternich of Italy. He commented in 1814 that Italy was a mere geographic expression, given its disembodied national principalities and the lack of inclusion of Rome into its national space. That will be the first recorded expression. Rome or Italy was a mere geographic expression. Second has to do with Scotland. When Scotland became appropriated by Britain, and many people say they celebrate the Scottish question, which has existed with the question whether Scotland, by this incorporation, has become a mere geographic expression. In essence, every nation is founded as a mere geographic expression. So there's nothing wrong with Nigeria's mere geographic expression. That is the founding of a nation, different from the building of a nation. From geography to nation states to nation building to a holistic and coherent assemblage of people with common identity, common values, common constitutional framework, common ideology. The biggest geographic expression is the USA. The kind of static colonies. War of imperialism against Mexico. Today, Mexico has lost 52% of its land mass to the US. In the world, they lost. That's why they brought in California, Texas, New Mexico, Nevada. They bought Alaska from Russia. They purchased Hawaii in 52 became a state from some conquest of kings and monarchs somewhere in Japan or somewhere in Ireland to build a 50-state structure with one and some other principalities. So America is a clear case of geographic expression, but we became that geographic expression by creating a constitutional framework that answers to a new spirit of citizenship, by resolving ancestral claims and indigenous claims to this citizenship. Finally, we can begin this adult journey of rebuilding the Nigerian space from geography to nation space to a country that is going to be ready for a service president in 2023. Second thing to note, colonialism and nation building. We've not paused to ask ourselves, as powerful as colonialism was, its redemption lies in this ability to mobilize people. will instruct us, given his rich experience and age of involvement in Christian and Nigerian states. The notion of ethnic identity, the Igbo-ness of the Igbo, was not founded before colonialism. Colonialism founded the identity of the Igbo as a coherent and cohesive continuous geography. As a benefit of colonialism, so whenever we are sent, we must not attack colonialism, there will be anything called Igbo ethnic identity. And the struggle to create Nigeria into a new order, the struggle against colonialism itself, was a product of colonialism. If we did not create an official state called Nigeria, the Zids of this world and the rest of them will not inspire to fight for national independence on the basis of that which colonialism has created. The last thing will be the Constitution of 1999. Read the paper, sure. That's not the people's constitution. But the US was not the people's constitution. Read the paper in the US only meant men who are Christians. It didn't include women. It didn't include blacks. But today we celebrate the Constitution as almost a near perfect document. This is the ground on which I build my case on the national question in Nigeria. The two elements in the national question, restructuring, which is an integral part of this assumption about Igbo presidency or Sani presidency 2023. Can you restructure Nigeria? Can you create that more better, a more perfect society that is full of compassion? Can you now engender a society of equity and justice, as the chairman has pointed out, and as our bishop has celebrated his prayer? In building a restructured nation, please do not bother with what, do not bother with when, do not bother with where and why. Bother with the how. How do you restructure? If you examine all the sentiments and emotional displays and rhetorical assertions of restructuring, there is not a single how. That is why the argument has not moved any further. There are three ways you can restructure Nigeria. One is to do what Fujimori, former president of Peru, did in 1992. He became president. He inherited a bad institution, called the army to topple his government, which they dutifully did. In that interregnum of almost 6-9 months, he now convoked the army, helping him to convoke a national conference or dialogue that produced a constitution that reflected his own identity, what he wanted to implement. So it is by asking Buhari or a new Igbo service president in 2023 to ask the army to make a coup in order to create the states to restructure. That is one way. The only time in history, in recent memory, was 1998 when apartheid died and Nigeria died. And there was no constitution. There was no legal framework for governance. There was no legislature. That was when the political class and civil society should have insisted we're not going to go through the pantomime or the pyrotechnic of an election. We will restructure the country. We didn't do it. We are leaders of the 30% of our life for democracy. We accepted the constitution. We wanted the military to go. Therefore, we kicked down the can down the road to a future date in which we can grapple with the national question. That date has come upon us and is haunting our today and will likely haunt our tomorrow. Second way we can restructure is what the disruptors in the system are doing. From Boko Haram, bandits, to secessionist movement in the southwest, the southeast, the Niger Delta struggle. If these groups could bind themselves together, overwhelm the government in Abuja, create a disorder in governance, topple the existing political order, then it is possible to restructure. But these two ways cannot happen. I just want you to know they will not happen. I just want you to understand how deep and complex this proposition is. It's not going to take back to shout the structure, all that of the structure. If you're the president who are in time and they give you a document of structure in the country, that's why I said I'm busting bubbles. Even the president, he said, "How did this issue very wrong?" He said, "Okay, my people, what do I do with this document? Or help us to restructure this, how do I structure?" He said, "Give it to the National Assembly. Let Assembly said they cannot amend the Constitution except on the basis of the guardrails and the strictures set by the Constitution, which means this document from the president is only fixed as a toilet paper. And the use it as a toilet paper. What will you do? You see, it's not enough to say one of the structure. The third way you can structure, the safest way, is where you have an enlightening, communal-oriented, progressive president of service, especially in 2023, with a national assembly that is full of understanding and regional leaders that are bought into the agenda. We can't move forward with this constitution as we have it. Let us not apply pressure on every single stakeholder. On the state, the state can now be made to talk to itself. It means we create a constitution amendment process, referendum, and then we now go to the people and say, do we then now remove this constitution on the basis of referendum? The people say, we agree. They've achieved the first step. Get the constitution out of the way, by a constitutional provision, work out through consensus, building, and reaching common grounds. You can move on and on and on. So the many issues involved with this. I'm not even going to the issue of separatism and agitation over self-determination. The only way they can leave you with, you cannot agitate to separate successfully except the branch of an established political order. No civil society group can agitate. It must be an arm and destroy the system as it is before it can succeed. If you don't, you must want to establish political order. Each time you listen to elders and talk, what is wrong with what Kanu is doing and Fo is doing? Is that different from what they are doing in Scotland? Yes, it is different. Nicola Sturgeon is an elected first minister of Scotland. She leads the political party called the Scottish National Party. She had the mandate of the people in the ballot box with referendum to separate from Britain as a core agenda and ideology of that group. In Catalonia, there's a government there in the region that said we have to break out of Spain. If the southeast governs, south governs, southwest governs, decide that they're tired of Nigeria will break up seamlessly in 3 months without a single gunfire. I'm not ready to that. You know, we're still marching towards the presidency. I'm giving you the first premise. National question, how to pause here because of time, and go to the second one, presidential power. I say that presidential power can be very beneficial if we deploy, even as a strong nation. Because ultimately, there is a movement, a foundational constitutional movement from what I call neutralism to federalism to separatism. If at the end of the day, people who talk about clash of civilization in Nigeria, it means clash of not just ethnic identity or the fault lines, not clash of evil centrifugal forces tearing the nation state apart, not even a clash creating ungoverned spaces, expanding, but clash of civilization, which means in civilizational calculation, this country can be one. That is the separatist moment. When we move from the neutralist moment, which is governance, improve the constitution, hold the governors accountable. Let the president be true to his words and his promises. Then the federalism means have self-determination, referendum, built into the constitution. From neutralist assumptions to federalist assumptions to separatist assumptions. So the presidential power can work well from the neutralist assumption to the federalist assumption. A powerful president, and the president is silently very powerful, can orchestrate a moment in history that can transform this incoherent nation states into a progressive country of shared values and empowered citizens. So when say presidential power will be beneficial, even as a stop-gap nation, as the nation searches for the way out of these self-inflicted nets. The principle and logic of Sunni presidential power favors the South, and in the South favors the Southeast. This point has been made. I will not remember it. Chairman, coordinator, implied in our spiritual leader, the bishop here, and the public statements made by Prof. And the two agencies have worked, I said so at the beginning. Human agency is the business of man and woman. In ontological calculation, there is a distance space B is occupied. That B, even from the biblical calculation, is infused of life and knowledge and values and Godhead. So the B can utter words of wisdom and words of newness, can create moments of epiphany in which you pierce the arrows of darkness and create a moment in which the Southeast president of 2023 becomes not only potent but becomes doable. So, two agencies, the agency of self-form and camping, and the family led service president of business expression and many other concourse of forces and movements, doing the needful, human's task, thankless job of building understanding, and ask again, this first agency has delivered. You have delivered. The Lord has acted. My question is this. The second agency will be the presentation of votes. And I ask, the human agencies at work, the group we represent. Two, they established political order in the Southeast, as awful as sometimes they will be. The governors, the local assembly, the national assembly, the caucus of the Southeast are in mass. Political parties, the dominant and the minor ones operating in the zone. Nationality group led by Manese. And of course, the availability and willingness of presidential hopefuls who should be in charge at this stage. My question: the absence of this task force, credible presidential candidates, that is, the absence of readily available, listen carefully, and willing presidential hopefuls whose viability derives not from personal moral or intellectual strength, but by belonging to, for now, one or two of the hegemonic parties, the APC and the PDP, or are in the process of fashioning out a third political force that can topple establishment parties. In absence of what I have described in between, what it means is that the persuasive power and logic of all of us will be dismantled, paralyzed, and neutralized. In essence, in the absence of a viable presidential hopeful, the Southeast Presidency Project 2023 is fully and totally dead on arrival. This brings me to the concluding part of my comment. The limits of advocacy. If you witness what happened in Bauchi yesterday, when 40 or so ATP governors met, almost everybody flew in private jet. The cost of the private jet, cost of fuel, or chartering the private jet in the hands of Zephyr is enough to turn the fortunes of the service around. I'm not talking about the splendor of the show, not about the accommodation, the food, the wine, the total expenditure. of that one single meaning with a very weak communication is enough to transform what you're doing into a different phase of struggle, in which the president himself will say, who are these members of SEPOL that created a lot of problems in the country? So you lack a capacity to mobilize actionable finances, not because you've not tried to, we have not tried to. It's simply because it is not in the nature of things or the order of things. In a country in which intellectual power has been retarded and taken to the off the stage, in which the dominant political establishment of the political class are not only anti-intellectual in nature, and substantive anti-human in nature. So that's the first limitation. The second limitation is, no matter how you foreground and mainstream this advocacy work, it can only succeed and be successfully effectuated when and only when aspirants or candidates of service expression begin to step out of their own work. The context for poverty, they feel no context. Some people emerge from this election because they need to have a name in the calendar, and they wear it as a badge of honor. I was once a candidate in 2019. For God's sake, if there were 15, 16, 17 million, I can read on revotes, can tell, and you cannot 2000 votes. It did not contest the election. It's just a feeble moment. We're not going to talk about feeble moments here. We're talking about taking power. The democratic effort to take power. And you cannot take power from the edges. You must take power from the upfront and the mainstream. So there's an extent this group can do. And there's an extent they carry themselves what they charge. And I ask, assuming the SEPOL and all other groups working towards this advertising goal persist in the advocacy work, and we see no service politician declaring interest in the presidency on the two dominant parties, and in any other platform that stands a big chance, not of testing integrity or intellectual strength or moral authority, but of winning the presidency, then what? What have they accomplished? Sometimes, as advocates of civic space empowerment, we do not even understand the structural difference between a President Buhari who claims to have a mandate and an Abacha who came as a military dictator. We use the tools of advocacy of the military era to engage a civilian democratic movement. It can't work. That is why a ruthless president can decimate his population with minimal sanction from the international community. Because all of them were there to witness his inauguration. And you can plead with them, this was what the distribution started. This was the story of a politician taking on the next election, self-spending for the next generation. When Biden has won the election, even at his age, he's planning already 2024. When Trump won in 2016, and when he back to the North, was an impactful president. In terms of his first American agenda, which will be the test or the opponent of values, they delivered almost 100%. But he was campaigning every day from day one. So campaigns will not distract governance if your vision is clear, if your ideology is succinct, if the team is ready, and you can hit the ground running. So then when you know candidates, say, oh, it's not yet time, we're waiting for the real time, you're waiting for Timmy, or Saraki, or Baba, or Tapu, well, it's a thing of money, but and all these people have mentioned also Atiku, Saraki, and Baba are busy in certain structures, recruiting food soldiers. What lies are also coming. They are telling you that it is power interested in that if APC takes this candidate to the south, maybe the southeast, people will take it to the north. I want to see how the southeast man can beat any of them in Kano. pouch or child. So there's no excuse that time is coming. No, the time has come. Two, you must draw up. I know they've already done that. Go and re-examine the list of the hopefuls you have already drawn up. I know Prof did a lot before in the group. Did drop the list and published it. And I know they did go around and you've gone round and gone round and getting nothing but this solid science. The news snakes. And people were hesitant to answer the fantasy. You must collectively visit them, all of us, and demand answers from them when we go here. Even the service ministers, we must ask them to resign when the presidency. Mama Karama, remember her? She said, I was going to be the governor of Delta State. And I resigned. And I went to the president and said, I am not your person. I respect humanity, who's woman. And she said, I'm going to contest election. And when it stopped her, she resigned and said, if I'm not fit to be a governor, a minister, I'm not fit to be a governor. That means I'm not being a party anymore. That is out of courage. Let the ministers resign. I come and tell us about the president. Let them know we're doing the minister job. Excuse me. Resign and give your structure. And go around the country mobilizing support. Then consult widely. And then set a cut-off date for all Southeast presidential hopeful to declare the stand or shut off for good. Or shut off for good. In the event of failure, because I know they are cutting things already. I know they are cutting deals. Don't stop. I know they are liaising with all their friends across the country. I know that the community of the partnership meeting was a success community. There are many things to come at the table they will not see. I'm involved at that level. So I should know. That's why I took the pain and the risk and the logistic pain of being here. So I know that some Southwest governors are already cutting deals. Behind their back, I have busy trudging around the whole country, negotiating outcomes, inspiring people. They're already cutting deals. That's why I say, in the event of failure to address their goal positively, set up a high-power negotiating team that will liaise south to south, southwest, and possibly northern presidential goals to negotiate best possible outcome for the Southeast in 2023. We should not lose out on the event when we don't have credible materials and lose out that the new Nigeria is composed post-Buhari and we're still right there. This candidate should discharge himself up and record of the moral body in the conference. That is why November for me is a do or die date. It is cast in stone. There is no question of human, no question of pounding to anybody's wings. That November, all of us will begin today to mobilize, to reach across the line, to build understanding, to make parties, and even those who are candidates without party, who will be operated by the parties down the line. So we all gather on a solemn occasion in the presence of God living and the divine, with bishops here guiding us to each other, and elders after with the land of the Southeast awash with the rising sun, with the darkness of yesteryears and the structure of today fading away. We must embrace our destiny and our humanity. We must march forth, set up as Shrika will say before dawn, so that we will be able to conquer us. In beginning our lives will be, but at the end of the day, there must be the turning of a new order. The order of stability, of peace, of justice and equity in the context of the President of Southeast expression in 2020.